Welcome back to another video. Today I am here with Ezekiel Dobson, who is the youngest person to break the 700 species barrier and also the new lower 48 states big year record holder. Welcome on, Ezekiel.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
So the first question that I have for you is what first sparked your interest in birding?
Um, well, I guess my spark bird, you would say so, is probably ruffed grouse. I saw it in the northern panhandle of Idaho, which is where I had lived at the time. Um, but I mean, I was honestly just looking for a hobby to pick up. I was 12 years old at the time, and I was looking for like a birthday gift. And so I picked up a field guide to the birds of Idaho, and I just memorized like every bird in that book basically. And they had like a little checklist in the back, and I just started, knocking one and one off, one by one off of them. And yeah, it was fun and quite addicting for sure. And then once I found out about eBird and so on, that really hit it for me. So yeah, it was fun.
Cool. How long have you been birding?
So started when I was 12, so I guess that'd be eight years ago by now.
Cool. So to get into some big year questions, when you started the year, did you have like a specific goal in mind?
Well, I definitely considered it more of a casual big year when I first started for numerous reasons. Main was definitely financial. I didn't have a lot of money, so I knew I couldn't, just drop and chase everything I wanted.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess the main goal was to break 700. Once I knew I had already I guess once I knew 700 would be kind of a easier achievement for me. Um, Compared to the breaking the record and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that was the main goal, was to break it at such a young age that if someone wanted to break my record of 700 at age 19, they'd have to be 18.
Yeah.
So
And I think, was it Christian Hagenlocker who was the youngest before you?
I believe so. I think he was 20 and he had 680, I think.
What bird was the hardest for you to get during the year?
Ooh, one that was kind of tough for me that I wasn't expecting was hook-billed kite in
Mm,
the valley. Um, they can be seen pretty regularly when doing hawk watches and so on, just because they live
yeah.
so close to the border. But I did like hawk watches for multiple days straight in Benson, and then went over to Santa Ana for almost a week, and finally got one after like doing a week straight of hawk watches. But I didn't expect it to be that hard,
Yeah.
especially when they were seeing it at this other spot, but it was just private property, and they were seeing it almost daily there. So I figured I had a pretty good chance at it, but I don't know why. It just took me
Yeah.
forever to get it.
Were there any birds that you missed that you had really hoped to see throughout the year?
Yes. The only common breeder I missed was gyrfalcon.
Mm,
Um, so I guess they breed up in Alaska, but not in the lower 48. But they can be seen in a few spots in the winter grounds. I just didn't have enough time to look for one. They're sensitive species on eBird, so it's
mhm.
hard to track where they are and find specific locations. But yeah, I missed that one. And then there was like a few, like I guess mega rarities that I kind of expected to get just based on how many times they show up throughout the year, like redneck stint or red-throated pipit. Those are like common code threes that almost always show up in California or so on during the fall. And there was only one or two red-throated pipits this year, and they were just one-day wonders. And
Mm,
there was like no redneck stints, so that was a shocker too.
yeah. What was the most exciting bird sighting that you had throughout the year?
Um, I would say wood sandpiper in Yolo County, California. That was a bird I thought I would get the day it showed up. I was in LA, so it was near Sacramento area. So I quickly drove up to there before the sun went down, but I unfortunately got a flat on the interstate. So
Oh
that
no.
prevented me from getting there the same day. I didn't show up until like 11 p.m., so it was dark. And I just slept in like the little trailhead parking lot there. And the next day I went to where it was seen previously, and there was like 20 birders out there looking, and it wasn't there. And there is a water treatment plant like a couple miles away that all of us birders went to go look and just scan,
Mhm.
through thousands of shorebirds basically. And we looked for solid like 3 or 4 hours and still couldn't come up with it. And I went back to the previous spot it was seen again, and it still wasn't there. So I was like, well, I'm gonna try to expand my search. Like look within a 30-mile radius of like any water bodies, see if it's around there. And I was about 10 minutes away when someone texted me that the wood sandpiper was back at the original spot. And so I whipped my car around, sped over, and it was about like a mile walk to the spot. So I booked it, running as fast as I could. And they had it in the scope as soon as I walked up there. So that was nice. And a bonus is I only had about like 10 minutes with the bird before a peregrine falcon like dive bombed it. And it made it flush, and no one else got to see it since. Yeah.
At the right time.
Yep.
Did you skip any birds on purpose to like see a few other species?
Um, I mean, I didn't like skip them, like miss them throughout the year. There's definitely common stuff. I was like, well, I'm not gonna look for that now because I
Mhm.
know I'll be back later in the year. Um, like there are some, wintering stuff in Arizona that I could have gotten, but I knew they'd be coming back in like the summer in much larger numbers. So I just, waited it out, and skipped stuff like that. But, I eventually got it.
How many miles did you travel throughout your big year?
So I drove a little over 130,000
Wow.
in my Nissan Altima. Yeah. And then I believe I didn't track it, but I believe it's probably over 10,000 in rental car miles. Just because I, drove across excuse me, I drove across the US like twice, I think, in one. So
Cool. Did you have like a home base or were you just always moving to different spots?
so my excuse me. My family lived in Kentucky, so that was a home base whenever I was out east. And then I had a friend I was kind of roommating with in Arizona. That
Mhm.
was also considered a home base, you could say.
Cool. And then how did you manage like accommodation and meals throughout the year? Were you like mostly car camping or staying in hotels?
Mostly car camping for sure. When I would stay in a hotel or an Airbnb, it was most of the time when someone would offer to pay for it. But I never would, buy a hotel on my own. That's too
Mhm.
expensive. Um, or friends and family would offer that I could stay at their place for a night. Um, and for food wise, lots of McDonald's for sure. Chipotle, I loved eating Chipotle. And often I would just get snacks and stuff at the grocery store, like
Mhm.
getting a loaf of bread and PB&J, and just doing that for like a couple days. So yeah, just stuff here and there. I mean, I never really ate out at restaurants and stuff like that. It's too time consuming and too
Yeah.
much money.
What were some unusual or like unexpected travel experiences that you had?
Um, hmm. Probably just last minute flights. I wasn't expecting to fly as much through the year. But when I'm birding in California and I hear a banana quit showed up in Florida,
Yeah.
and sometimes those birds don't stick longer than a week. So I was like, well,
Mhm.
let's look at flights. And most of the time, thankfully, things were pretty cheap and affordable. So I was able to get out there, get the bird, and then fly back the next day. So that was definitely something I didn't anticipate, but I needed to do it to, get more birds.
Mhm. How far advanced did you start planning for your big year?
It was kind of last minute. I mean, I didn't decide to do a big year until like September, October of the previous year.
Hmm.
I mean, I've been wanting to do a big year pretty much ever since I started birding.
Yeah.
So since I was 12, so I kind of already like had ideas and concepts of a plan of what a successful big year looks like. Um, but with like specific targets and stuff. I mean, mostly it was just last minute. I'd be traveling through Texas and be like, all right, looking at eBird, what easy targets can I
Mhm.
pick up? And I'll just like pull over 10 miles off the interstate and just bird for an hour or stuff.
Did you ever feel like a sense of competition with other birders throughout the year that were doing a big year?
Mm, not really. I mean, the McQuades who do a big year almost every
Hmm.
year.
Yeah.
Um, I was kind of competing just to be first in the US for a while there, but I knew they would eventually outrun me because they went to Alaska and Hawaii and picked up like another 100 birds easily. So once I kind of had given that up, there wasn't really a competition for the lower
Yeah.
48.
And you were the only one. Were you the only one doing a lower 48 big year?
There was another couple doing a big year, but not as serious as I was. I think they ended with 706, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, broke 700.
Um, yeah.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you had throughout your big year?
Definitely driving overnight a lot. That's challenging to stay up, especially when you're alone. Most of the time when I drive during the day and I get tired, I'll just call friends and such, and that'll help me stay awake. But during the night, I'm not really much of a coffee drinker or energy drink, stuff like that. So I just like roll down the window and stick my head out or stuff like that to keep me up. Um, and also, it is stressful just spending money and watching finances. Keeping track of that was definitely rough at times, but I made it through.
Cool. Um, did you have like a favorite birding spot or region throughout the year?
Yeah, I always loved birding in the valley in Texas. That's like
Hmm.
my favorite place on the planet.
Yeah,
It's just really an experience when you open your car door and you start hearing green jays and
yeah.
Altamira orioles. It's super fun.
How important was photography to you in getting pictures of every single bird that you saw?
It was of major importance for sure. I didn't have a camera for like a solid month or two of the year, so that was tough. But I always wanted to get pictures of a new bird I had seen, just because it's tough saying, "Hey, I got a new bird today," but I didn't get a photo.
Yeah.
I want people to trust me and see that my sightings were legit. So I always wanted to provide photos for stuff.
What gear did you use during your big year? Did you have like binoculars, spotting scope, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so Vortex actually lended me a spotting scope for my big year,
Cool.
as well as a new pair of binoculars. I think it was in May. My old pair of binoculars broke on me, so I needed to send them in to replace it, but I knew that would take like a week or two,
Mhm.
and I didn't have like a backup pair, so I asked them if I could just borrow a pair for like a week or two while they fixed it, and they were like, "Well, here, you could just have this pair."
Cool.
And yeah, it was really nice of them. So, I mean, I had a camera, a Nikon D500, um, with a 600 millimeter lens, which was
Cool.
definitely nice. So yeah, I mean, I had all the sufficient gear for sure.
Cool. How does it feel to hold the lower 48 big year record?
It's pretty cool. I mean, I still can't fathom it. It's registering in my brain what I've done, but it's pretty cool just seeing all the people react on Facebook and Instagram of like what an
Mhm.
accomplishment it is. It's super cool to be recognized and motivated from like the birding community so much to just get out there and get more birds.
Yeah. Do you plan on doing a big year for like a specific state or something like that?
Nothing this year, but I am guiding in Arizona, hopefully for the next 2 years, and
Cool.
maybe I'll do a big year for the state of Arizona or something like that.
Any lessons or tips you would share with someone who's considering doing a big year?
Yeah, don't worry about all the common birds. That was a minor mistake on my part earlier on in the year. I kind of went out of my way multiple times for common birds, just because I didn't think I'd see them again. But if you're doing a very serious big year, you'll backtrack a lot. And most often you'll visit places that you thought you'd never come back, and you'll see like a bird 4 or 5 times you thought you'd just see once. So that's kind of embarrassing. Just like seeing a LeConte sparrow like 7 or 8 times, and you drove like 2 hours out of your way to get it your first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't worry about the common stuff. The rare birds will show up, and that'll bring you to the spots you need to be to like get all the easy pickups.
Cool. This is kind of similar, but if you could redo the year, is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, basically just chase rarities in the beginning. There is like a field fair in Wisconsin for like a solid month or two that I should have chased. There was like a whooper swan in Washington, which I did up getting in the end of the year, thankfully. that was just pure luck. But it was wintering in Washington for like 3 months, and I should have gone to see it earlier, but I didn't. So yeah, just recognizing how rare birds are and chasing them.
What's next for you in your birding journey?
So yeah, I'll be guiding in Arizona officially now. My first client is a few days. Um, and I think I'll be doing that for a few more years. Hopefully, if I like it and things work out. Um, and obviously, I'll continue chasing lifers and such.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I want to have a life list of like over 800 for the lower 48 at some point. That's like the main goal.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool.
You plan on doing any international trips or anything like that?
I think I'm planning a trip to Costa Rica either the end of this year or sometime early next year. We'll see.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, it's tough with the airfare, but I feel like once you get there, it's a lot cheaper than what everyone thinks.
Hmm. Well, where can people follow you?
On Instagram and Facebook mostly.
I'll link that in the video description below. And
Awesome, thank you.
one last thing. What's your best birding advice for someone?
Definitely reach out to birders when you meet them. It's kind of I don't know. It's really neat just to get to know the birding community, and it's cool to have so many friends everywhere. I mean, anywhere I go now, basically, or when I chase a rare bird, there's always someone I know, or if not, I can meet up with them later
Mhm.
because I've met them, in the past. So, just it's good to reach out and make a lot of good birding friends. It helps you for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for being on today. I'll put a
Yeah,
link
thanks,
to
man.
Ezekiel's Instagram in the video description below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy birding.